episode number 19 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and today we're going to roll into the year 1977, another big year in Mark Martin's racing career. But again, race fans, make sure to get on the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Find out all of the old episodes. Make sure to give them a listen, and you can find links to get to your favorite podcast player. Make sure to go subscribe on your favorite podcast player, and make sure to hit that 5-star rating. Also, make sure to tell all of your friends. Let them know about this run of podcasts. Mark, right now, we're on a hell of a run. You're having some fun in the beginning years of your career. 1977 today.
Yeah, these are this year is probably one of the most fun ones to talk about, because we have so many things that happened in our transition from dirt racer to asphalt racer, from not knowing
trying to make it 2 in a row.
anything.
Hello and welcome, everyone.
About
joined by former
race cars, really, when we ran dirt, to
MVP baseball game with EA Sports.
Learning how to set up
pitcher,
race
Matt
cars
Clement.
and how to do tires, stagger
Welcome
tires,
to an American League game that
and
features the
and all
Baltimore
those things.
Orioles and the Boston
I'll probably
Red Sox.
skip around a little bit. There are a lot of interesting
Here's the game's first
things that we
Miguel
did,
Cabrera.
but I guess I'll start with the tow truck. We ran the same truck that we started in 74. 75 we extended the cab. 76 we made a ramp truck out of it. Then for 77 we added, my dad added a duplex transmission, which was probably a 4x4, probably split each 4 gears 4 times if you wanted to. So that was major, and we also built a little trailer to haul behind, to pull behind it, because we were running out of room in the compartments and everything. So we had a big tire rack on it. Probably 2 rows. I don't remember. I think 2 rows of tires, which was enough at the time. But we were starting to travel around. We needed to haul a spare engine. We needed to haul a 55-gallon drum of racing fuel and all our tools and spare parts. So we built a trailer.
That one was
say it's probably a 6x8. Might have been a 6x6 or 7x7 foot trailer, square trailer. Looked like a U-Haul trailer, with compartments and all this stuff, toolbox and spare engine and all those kinds of things. And we had Tampa Joe, of course, build us a small block Chevy engine, because that's what you needed. And I'm not sure how my dad found out, what was the hot setup for asphalt racing, but he had definitely understood that, small block was the way to go. Aluminum heads were starting to come into onto the scene. Rodex was making them down in Mena, Arkansas, but they were not known to make as much power as steel heads. So our first motor was a steel-headed motor, because Dad was all about power. And he landed on Howe chassis, and I don't know how he landed on that, but luckily that was the premier asphalt chassis at the time. So he called and ordered a chassis from Ed Howe. Roland chassis, suspension, with a roof on it, deck lid and quarter panels on it, Camaro. And I think we were going to hang the rest of the body and whatnot. So went up to pick that thing up at Howe's in Beaverton, Michigan from Arkansas. Was a hell of a trip. Brought it back to Arkansas to finish the car off, with plans of going to Speed Weeks at Daytona New Smyrna at that time ran 9 nights in a row.
Strike one.
The nation's greatest short track racers, all collected there, from Trickle to
One ball, one strike.
Gary Ballou to Joe Shear to Mike Eddy to Junior Hanley. You name them, the heavy hitters showed up for that thing. So it was over our head for sure, but we wanted to go down there and get our 9 nights of racing would be equivalent to 2 months of racing back home. So we wanted to go down and get experience. Didn't have any high expectations because we knew we didn't know anything. But one thing cool about how was you got a setup sheet, complete setup sheet. So, you know, it's a handbook on how to, you know, how to set your car up. But we thought that we would take the car when we finished it, take it back up the edge and let him set it up and show us what all that stuff meant. And you know, in the setup sheet and set it up before we went to New Smyrna. Well, you know, first of all, again, we're so dumb we didn't know anything, and all we knew was those wide 5 hubs were ugly as hell. So we ordered the car with the Grand National 5x5 bolt pattern because that's what all the Southern late models had on them, and because that's what NASCAR cars had. And so we finished the car, those hubs. We also put Hurst Earhart brakes on it, which were the brakes that they ran in NASCAR, which were nice big brakes, much bigger than the single piston Chevrolet brakes that Ed ran on all his cars. So we had these big brakes, and we had these stupid hubs, and we had these, you know, 5x5 wheels, bolt pattern wheels, and we had the car all done, and it was beautiful. We actually put a front air dam on it. The IROC cars had a front air dam on them. Front spoiler looked really, really cool, so we got that thing. Got one of those and put on the front of it. Man, this baby was sweet. And we rolled it off the trailer in January at Howe's to, you know, get him to show us how to set it up. And we dropped it on the scales, and he crapped all over it. The car was heavy. His setups required 55% left side weight, 50-50 front to rear weight distributions. And the car was just a pig, like all our cars had been, heavy. And he totally humiliated my dad and I. Treated us, of course, Ed was very, very abrasive. He was loud. He knew, well, what he knew it all, and he was right. And he was an abrasive type of guy to talk to. And he just humiliated us. The car was too pretty and too heavy and ridiculous. So we put her on jack stands and ripped the suspension off of it, changed the hubs, put the wide 5 hubs on it, and the Chevrolet single piston brakes on it and everything, and shaved off a bunch of weight right there. And we went ahead and set it up. It still was too heavy. Still had steel heads on it, but we went ahead and set it up. Now I think it had about 53 and 0.8% left side weight or something. Couldn't make it to 55.
Here's the pitch.
But we did the best we could with it. Loaded up and headed home. Now we're ready to go to New Smyrna. I didn't know anything about tires. I saw Hoosier tires on a lot of asphalt cars. So we bought us a set of Hoosier tires. I didn't know anything about tire compounds either. I don't even know what compounds they were for sure. But we had us a set of Hoosier tires, and we headed off for New Smyrna. In the meantime, my dad started initiated purchasing a set of aluminum heads and getting aluminum heads, ready to go on the race car. We couldn't do it in time for New Smyrna, but we were going to be able to do that when we got back. So to get rid of that weight, and we had become weight conscious. We were a believer. So we rolled into New Smyrna, and the first night, the way the format was at the time, they took the fastest eight. The fastest eight went directly in to the main event, and you drew a pill for inverting, on how many they would invert out of that top eight. And then the rest of everybody ran heat races. So I didn't, obviously didn't qualify in the top eight. And on the start of the heat, we went down into one, and coming up off of two, they wrecked in front of me. And there wasn't anything I could do. I piled into it and into the guardrail there.
He gets it over for a strike.
Coming, where you cross the racetrack on the backstretch. And it destroyed the car. Wiped out, you ran a Corvette aluminum radiator, wiped out the radiator, bent the front snout, tore just tore it all to hell. And so my dad found a shop somewhere around there that we could work on the car. The next day, we take the car to that shop. My dad calls the hotel where Ed Howe was staying, and asks Ed if he would come and look at this thing. And so Ed does. He comes that day, comes and looks at it. We've got it all tore down, and he looks at it and he says, "Yeah, it's bent. But you may as well put it back together and let the boy get some experience." So we spent 2 days. We met, so we wrecked on the first night. We missed the second night and the third night. Putting this car all back together, getting the body on it, and getting it all put back together. Well, the right front snout was bent up so far that we just had to crank rounds into, because it would, if we set it up like the setup sheet said, it leaned over to the right because the snout was bent. So we just kept cranking rounds into the right front until it got up, setting, level. And then we set the wedge in at 58% cross in it like it was supposed to. Put her back together, and we roll back into the racetrack on the fourth night. Well, Jody Ridley was a Firestone Tire Deal car. Jody ran Fords. He blew up on the first night. He blew up on the second night. He blew up on the third night. So he was out of motors and loaded up and went home, was gone the fourth night when we rolled back in there. And I don't have any idea why they did it. But I remember, while we were unloading the car, a guy from the Firestone tire truck walked over and said, "Hey, would you guys be interested in trying a set of tires?" And it's like, oh, well, okay. So we rolled 4 wheels over there, and I remember rolling back. They were scuffs. They were Jody's tires. They had 98, number 98 written on them. So they were scuffs from Jody. We bolted those 4 tires on, and I went out and qualified third. Third freaking fastest. It was absolutely unbelievable. And we ran the rest of the week and made the top 8 every single night in qualifying. So that was pretty amazing. Now we're kind of proud of this bent front snout. So we had planned on taking it to Ed's and getting a new snout put on it. After speed weeks, we were just running to learn and get experience, but we ran so damn good when we got home, we decided, hell, we're going to keep running this thing. It's fast. It's magic, So we kept running. It started running up at Springfield, Missouri on Friday night and Fort Smith on Saturday night. And this particular year, the American Speed Association, ASA, had a 200 lapper at Springfield. And they also had 6 100 lappers at I-70, which was within traveling distance of us. And they also had a 200 lapper at Fort Smith. Well, I was racing Springfield Friday night, Fort Smith Saturday night, and by the time those races rolled around, I was actually between Rusty, Larry Phillips, and I, one of the 3 of us won every time, every race. Weekly there. So when the Springfield race rolled around, I remember we were getting ready to go up there, and my dad got this big yellow coil and some kind of electronic ignition. They were just starting to come out, electronic ignitions and stuff. And we put this big old coil and electronic ignition and distributor in. And we're leading that race. And we got Trickle, Seneca, Mike Eddie. We got all the greats behind us.
This pitcher rings up K's with
and
great frequency every time
we lead. And finally they have a caution, and I believe it was for Marty Robbins. I can't remember for sure. Somebody said it was. Anyway, we ran around on caution forever. And finally the thing just got so hot, it just quit running. And so that was it. They had to drag us in with a wrecker. My dad was so freaking mad. He couldn't, I couldn't believe it. I was scared to death because my dad had such a temper. And so we always went to Denny's after the race to eat. So when we got to Denny's, we all rode in that four-door pickup. We're going into Denny's. About the time we go in the front door, I hear swearing and a gunshot. First, I hear beating and then a gunshot. Well, my dad's out there with a tire tool, and he beats that electronic ignition off the dash, puts it on the ground, and shoots it with his pistol. Cut all the time, swearing at it, cussing it. So that was big. Then we go to I-70 for the first ASA race. I-70 was a super speedway. I was used to racing on quarter miles and then the half mile at Springfield and the half mile. Well, this is a super high bank half mile at I-70 Speedway. Fast as hell. And once again, I'm out there running, and a car in front of me wrecks coming off of turn 4. And, I don't have enough experience to probably know exactly what to do. And I get sideways trying to miss him and go into the inside wall head on. And I wore these racing shoes that didn't have much of a sole on them. They were Nomex. And I remember I had my foot on the brake, and this car still had dual master cylinders on it so that we could adjust the brakes front to rear. And both master cylinder rods just bent up like a horseshoe, and the brake pedal went down. It was swung from the top side. So my foot, of course, as the brake pedal went down, my foot slid underneath the brake pedal, and it dislocated my big toe.
There's a line drive.
So, oh Lord, you could see it. It was dislocated, looked terrible. And so they took me to the hospital, and I'm in there, and they checking my foot, X-ray it. And they finally come back in after the X-ray, and I remember the doctor walking toward me and said, "Well, how tough are you? And, you know, I looked at him and said, well, I'm pretty tough. And about the time I got the word tough out, his hands reached my foot, and he grabbed my foot and my toe and jerked that baby. And it like to killed me. But he jerked her back in place, and that was that.
That's strike one.
So the next time we go up there, the same damn thing happens. I ain't wrecked, but somebody else wrecked in front of me, and I turn around backwards. This time I'm going to the inside wall, and it breaks the tip off my shoulder blade. So none, you know, I've not been having too good a luck on this big, fast, super fast racetrack. But I do really good in the ASA race at Fort Smith, and I have collected enough points in these different racetracks that I accidentally ran that happened to be ASA races. That I was in the shop working, and one day the phone rings, or answer the phone, and it's, hey, Mark, this is Rex Robbins.
Safe at third.
I'm the owner of the ASA series. And I just wanted you to know that you're a lock for Rookie of the Year this year, but you have to run 50% of the races. And that means you'll have to run all but one of the rest of the races on the schedule. Well, I had just, you know, graduated from high school, so I had time, you know, to do the traveling. All the races, of course, were Ohio, Indiana, Wisconsin, Michigan, and those kind of things. So, you know, by this time I'm getting pretty fast. My car's gotten light. I've got aluminum doors and fenders on the car now. I've got aluminum heads on it, and I'm actually over 55% left side weight and over 50% rear weight. So the car's pretty nice by now. You know, it's had a new front snout put on it, and we've lightened her up a bunch. It's the sucker's really fast. Of course, I'm running Firestone tires, and with Firestones, I was able to get my 2 inches rear stagger like I needed pretty easily, and I was really learning a lot about tires. And so we head out to this ASA race in Cincinnati, Ohio, which is the first pit stop race. It was a 400 lapper. So I knew Banjo Grimm. Banjo Grimm was volunteer help on Rusty Wallace's car. And I race with Rusty every Friday night at Springfield and every Saturday night at Fort Smith. So anyway, Rusty wasn't going to this race at Cincinnati, so I asked Rusty if I could ask Banjo to go with us, because Banjo looked like he'd be able to change a tire. And so Banjo agrees to go, and we stop through St. Louis and pick him up. We go run the 400 at Cincinnati, and we run really good. We run top 5. I remember Jack Ingram being there in coming up and running that race, and you know, just some cool memories. But we ran top 5 in that race. Then we go to Owasso, Michigan, and Junior Hanley's there, and Seneca's there. Junior sits on the pole, and you know, I qualify really good, probably top 5. And I get going in the race, and Seneca Junior's leading, and Seneca's running second, and I'm running third. And the racetrack is really flat, and it's hard to pass. And I spend at least the last half of the race side by side with Seneca trying to pass him. I never touch him, never put a wheel on him. We just raced really, really hard. I wound up running third, but
if you're looking for a high average
Ed's right-hand man was Herb was his name, who, you know, pretty much ran the front office at Howe Racing, was in the grandstands. And he saw that race, and he couldn't believe what he'd seen. This young little kid out here racing with, you know, Bob Seneca. And So later that week, the phone rings in the shop, and I answer the phone. It's Herb, and he says, "Hey, I got a setup for you, new setup." As we were running 1150 and a 600 across the front, a pair of 350s, and he had a new setup that was a 1050, 800, and a pair of 250s. He said, "I believe that'll help you." And boy, that was like thrilling to me to have somebody from Ed's call up and say, tell you what great job you did, and here's a new setup for you. And so I put that in the car, and of course it was a little quicker. We were doing better. We went to the Minnesota State Fair. We went to the Dry Power 400 at Winchester, and we finished off the season there. We did win, of course, the ASA Rookie of the Year. Herb called and said, "Hey, we want to give you a free chassis for next year." So in one season, I went from being chastised for being the ultimate dumbass to, "Hey, man, you're doing really good. Here's some setup info and a free chassis for next year." So that was quite an amazing time for us. We spent a lot of time burning up the highway from Arkansas to those northern races, those ASA races, in that tow truck. Man, that thing was fast, and Dad was always driving it fast. We survived it, but there were lots and lots of really good times. There was one night at Springfield when one of the things was when I'd get to Springfield, I'd always get there early. We'd get there early and get set up. We'd practice. We'd get all our stuff together. And then when practice was over, well, during practice, Rusty's hauler would be sitting outside the gate. He'd get there during practice, and of course, there's no tunnel, so his rig would be sitting outside. So when practice was over, they'd open the gate, and Rusty'd drive in. Well, one time, I went over to Rusty and said, "Rusty, why are you always late?" He says, I gotta wait for Herman to get out of school before I can come. His volunteer help. We were just kids, man, racing, but Rusty was so much fun and funny. Well, this particular night, Rusty and I were both getting fast enough to give Larry Phillips a run for his money. And this particular night, I remember Rusty, right before the feature, his car's on 4-jack stands. He pulls his wheels off, and all of a sudden I see 4 sticker Goodyears rolling back over toward his car. Goodyear has a new tire that they brought to the racetrack. Of course, I'm running Firestones because, heck, I'd never run another tire, on my car after, bolting them on and running so good out of nowhere. So I was running Firestones, but he rolled over these 4 sticker Goodyears and launched that baby in the feature, and he wins the race, and I run second. I'm behind him several car lengths, can't catch him, and he is so excited he wins the race that he sticks his hand out the window, waving to the crowd as he takes the checkered flag. And this racetrack is really, really flat, and if you got into the corner too hard or got in too high, you would spin out. It happened a lot. And Rusty took the checkered flag, waving to the crowd, drove into turn 1, backed her into the fence, and the deck lid flew open, and back end went up on the wall, and it was funny. Rusty was pretty famous for spinning out at Springfield, and he didn't put any latch on his deck lid, so whenever he turned around backwards, his deck lid would always fly up, and it was funny. But we had a lot of good times running up and down the road, and we went from 0 to challenging heroes by the end of the season. It was just an amazing transformation. I also remember, I was fast, but I was kind of like Jeff Gordon in his first season in NASCAR, where I think they put on a 15 or 18 front snouts on his cars. I got in a lot of accidents. When they would wreck in front of me, I would wreck.
And he's safe
And,
at first.
you know, it
And
frustrated
there's a
me
two-out
because
hit.
when people would wreck in front of Seneca or Trickle or whatever, they would miss the wreck. And I would always get in it. I couldn't figure it out. But one time, Bob Seneca comes over. All the great racers were interested in me because I was so fast, you know, and so young. They'd come over and socialize a little bit, talk. Bob Seneca walks up to my car. I walk over and he says, "Captain Crunch."
Here it comes.
Oh, that killed me. It just killed me because, you know, I wanted to be respected.
2 balls
And
and 1 strike.
I felt like such a failure because, you know, I was always getting caught up in
He crushed
somebody's
that
wreck.
one.
I wasn't causing wrecks and I
Off the
wasn't
wall. He's around
wrecking,
third.
you know, by myself, but I
And
couldn't
the run
miss them
comes
when they
home.
were in front of me.
That's an RBI
But that just
single.
comes in time and experience.
They're
So
running a great job.
I remember
Scored from
that.
second base on the base hit.
And
Great hit
he
to
was
the
saying it affectionately. And he probably was the one that gave me the nickname The Kid. Somebody did. And so they started calling me The Kid. And that really
And
stuck.
the pitch.
That nickname really stuck for
1
years.
ball, no strike.
And but
Okay,
it
this
was
dude
an
knows how to
amazing
steal a bag, and now is a great time
experience,
to do it.
amazing time in my career.
Taken for a ball.
So, Mark, at that time in 1977, were you 19 years old? Or 18? 18.
Mahomes
18.
looks
Yeah,
at ball
18.
3.
18 years old, and from the start of the season to the end of the season, just a complete
3 and 1.
transformation throughout.
Yeah, I just learned so much. And 18
And
years
here's the
old back
delivery.
then
It's
was
a full count.
absolutely phenomenal. You know, it was just blowing everybody
The runner
away.
goes.
Today
The
it's
pitch is hit to
not
right
thought of
field.
any, you know, you don't think of it, give it a second
Out
thought.
number
But at
3
that
with a man
time,
left on
to
first.
be able to compete on that level was
5 innings
just totally
played, the
unheard
score
of.
is
And
5-4.
uh,
Up next,
so, and
Sean
Rusty, even
Casey.
Rusty, you know, Rusty was young, but Rusty was a couple years older than I was, and it made a lot of difference. Plus, I was 18 and I looked 12, and I was the size of a 12-year-old, and I looked 12 years old, so it was even more exaggerated. So, it
Well,
was.
how's it got to be a boy from Arkansas, you know, small town Arkansas, 18 years old, and you're just starting to travel the world now, and you're racing against these
delivers.
big name asphalt guys.
Yeah, it's
Out of the
just
zone,
absolutely
that's a ball.
unbelievable. And that brings me to, you know, I've told you about my 2 biggest wins of my career so far, the Arkansas State Championship in '74, and then winning that race at Bolivar, Missouri in '76. Well, we decided we're going to go
And the
up and
count is
run
2-1.
the National Short Track Championship at Rockford, Illinois. And it is what it is. It's the National Short Track Championship, 200 lapper.
And that's a strike swing.
So
no choice right
we're
there.
always
Take it,
trying
and it's
to
a
improve our
strike.
stuff and
What a
always trying to
swing
make
it is.
lighter weight stuff. So for some reason, my dad got in his
Okay,
head
this guy is
the
one
idea of
tough at
trying
bat.
this automatic transmission. Somebody had rigged up this automatic transmission it was lighter, you know, because it didn't have a flywheel on the you know,
have someone
on the
throwing in their
and
bullpen.
clutch on the end of the crankshaft, whatever. It was so we put that thing in. We go up to Rockford. They have a day of practice, and the day of practice, this automatic transmission won't
Here's
work.
the
Every
pitch.
time I let off the gas, it just freewheels into the
Gets
corner.
it
So
out to center.
at the end of practice, we
And he makes the
realized
catch.
that transmission's
That is a
going to have to
super
come out.
effort to make
And
that catch.
the regular transmission's going to have to go back in it. So we make the change that night, get it all back together for the next day.
opens up
And the
on
next
one
day
and
is
gets a
practice
line
qualifying
drive.
day, and
He's
yep,
on
the car's
first
pretty
with a
good.
base hit.
We go out to qualify.
That slider just did
And
anything he wanted it to do, and as a result, it
We
got
get the biggest
smoked.
shock of our lives. We qualified second. Trickle set fast time, and we qualified second. Wow. And of course, they inverted however many, 8, you know, usually we're somewhere around 8, you know.
Pitch
So
misses.
the next day we get ready and start to race, and we run along there, and first this one has trouble, and that one has trouble, and I
He's on
pass
his way
this
to
one, and I
third.
pass that one, and late in the
He's
race,
rounding third.
I get the lead
Scores.
and pull off
It's
the
tied
win.
at 5-5.
And it is absolutely the most unexpected thing that you could ever have done. Just absolutely phenomenal. I've got pictures from the victory lane there. They put a horseshoe of roses on you, and that thing was bigger than I was. It touched the ground when they hung it on my shoulders. It was absolutely phenomenal, and that recognition, along with winning the ASA Rookie of the Year, really got people's attention. Got Stock Car Magazine spread. Started really getting national coverage and attention. And so, as the season winds down, and I get set to pick up my new Howe chassis and build a nicer, better race car for 1978. I certainly want to set my sights now. After winning Rookie of the Year, I want to win the championship, ASA championship, and that's going to continue to get me recognition and help propel me, where I want to wind up, which is NASCAR. So that's what we do. We set the wheels in motion toward 1978. We decide to build a new trailer and new transporter, and I had, next episode's going to be fabulous with the stories of the transporter, the trailer, the car, going and picking up the car at Ed's. Rusty Wallace makes that trip with me, and issues that we run into along that trip, Rusty and I. I think I'm 19 years old. Rusty's probably 21. We're just two kids seeing the world from the windshield of our tow trucks. So it's another amazing milestone career that I remember so many things about. As we get on into the NASCAR season and we get into the 90s, I'm not going to have the same kind of recollections of things, because there are many reasons for that. But one is, at this point in my career, I'm doing all the tires myself, picking them out at the tire truck, sizing them, putting them in sets, and shepherding the tires. And I'm also beginning to do the setups. I'm learning to transition from my dad, being the setup guy, to me being the setup guy. And I'm learning, about shocks and springs and sway bars and weight distribution and lightweight cars and aerodynamics. And I am in the beginning stages of hanging my bodies and shaping the bodies and making aerodynamic downforce and stuff. So all this stuff is starting to really come together, and I'm in the beginning stages of becoming a car guy, a really badass car constructor, not chassis wise yet, but from the body thing. I'm developing the body, the tire knowledge, the body knowledge, and the setup knowledge, the things that make speed in the car. I'm really developing at this stage, and this is, when you do the stuff with your own hands, it means so much more. You remember so much more than you do when someone else does all the work and all you do is strap in it and drive it.
Is that something you struggled with, in the latter years with NASCAR, is having this massive crew and you're just not very hands-on? Did you want to be a part of that? Or did the technology just completely go so far away that you're just like, whatever, dude, I'm just going to drive?
I transitioned well through all the changes in my career. When I first started driving for Roush, was the first time that I had, great personnel, Steve Neal and Robin Pemberton, and great people like that working on my cars. And it was it was a little bit of a difficult transition. They didn't want me, particularly want me in there, gouging in their business, and so that was a little bit hard for me. So that's why I did a Busch Series car, because I owned the car. I was able to work on it myself and do the things that I used to do with my short track late models and stuff like that. And that served me well. And over time and success, your demand for your time shifts from needing to attend race cars to attending sponsors and media and all those kinds of things, promoting the sport, promoting your sponsors, and that kind of thing. So it was sort of a gradual transition that I was able to go through, and then the technology toward the end, the stuff didn't even make sense anyway. It wasn't logical. It was just technology stuff and computer stuff and computer generated setup stuff and all these simulations and all that stuff. So by that time I was
There's a drive.
adapting to that and learning how to make the most out of my race car through working with great people like Alan Gustafson, Rodney Childers, just Ryan Pemberton, who was a teenager on my first Cup car, tire changer on my first win, first Cup win in 1989. Ryan was a tire changer. Then he got to crew chief me in 07. So a lot of different things happened over the years. But I feel like I transitioned well. I never got stuck in one era and resisted change.
So speaking of the Busch, opportunities in the races that you did with your own car, did a lot of that technology or a lot of that work that you put into that, did that transition over to the Cup Series, or did that help your Cup racing?
This past season,
it did early on. We went through years where our Cup car didn't run good and my Busch car hauled butt, and that kept me from getting fired at Roush's, probably, number one. Number two, it proved to my guys that, my setup stuff and car knowledge was something that needed to be interjected into our Cup program. And so, the doors opened up additionally with the success of that Busch car that I had in the early 90s, and it was a nice tool to further my career and further my success in the Cup Series.
Last thing I'm going to ask you, Rusty Wallace, it's been a big request on social media in the past. Someday we're going to get together, Rusty Wallace and Mark Martin, but we're probably going to have to go over like 3 episodes because it sounds like you guys have some stories.
Oh, we got major stories that we probably shouldn't tell. But the way we got stories of the way things were back when it was more like the Wild Wild West instead of today's sophisticated PC world. So, we got good stuff. We'll do it. Rusty and I talk about it all the time, but it's not as easy as people think to get you, Barry, me, and a guest all together where we can all get together at the same time and put one of these things together, because we're all busy people doing our own things. So it's not the easiest thing to put those together.
Well, when we do get it together, we're going to make it major, and it's going to be big. So we'll do it someday, but we've got schedules, like you said, and we're cranking out podcasts right now, going year by year on the Mark Martin podcast. This wraps up the year of 1977, episode number 19. Again, make sure to get on markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com, and check out all of the old episodes. You can find the links to where you can subscribe and download. Give us that 5-star rating. Also, make sure to hit us up on social media at Mark Martin Pod and send us a message. But again, episode number 1977 of the Mark Martin Podcast.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.
EA Sports, it's in the game. Swung on and missed. Pitch taken for a ball. A liner. No catch on the diving play. That's another base hit.
Well, the pitcher tried to get him guessing on a big hook, but hey, the fish weren't biting, big boy. They need to get a run right here. To do so, they might want to give up an out.
Hit the other way to the right side. That's a single.
Hey, kind of good work there to get the runner in the scoring position.
There are 2 on and nobody out. Here's the pitch. Just a bit inside. 1-2.
Right now, the defense should be thinking, too. The pitcher can really help out by throwing something low in the strike zone.
Takes low. Yanked to the left side. Safe at first. Tejada steps into the batter's box.
One down out here. Let's go one down. Break one.
It's a line drive the other way. Single.
Kai, that's what I like about this guy. I mean, he always gets it done. You ask him to get something done, boom, he delivers.
Next at the plate, Willie Bloomquist. It's hit out to right field. A run scores. That triple empties the bases.
Okay, there aren't too many guys around here that can turn that double into a triple.
A pitching change will be made. Here's the relief pitcher, Scott Williamson.
Your attention, fans. Tickets are still available for the upcoming homestand. The
Strike two.
Hitter's got to try and elevate that ball to the outfield to score the run from third.
The pitch. 1-2 the count.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Down low for a ball.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Payoff pitch coming. Down he goes on strikes.
Partner, he gets ahead of him and never looks back. Sweet strikeout.
This batter pounds the ball off right-handed pitchers.
Strike one. Strike two.
Anderson takes, and it's 1-2. Here's the pitch. Swing and a miss, struck him out. Going into the bottom of the eighth, the Red Sox trail by a margin of 4. High for a ball.
Looked like the pitcher and catcher have a strategy in mind. So far, the batters are taking these pitches.
Mahomes gets ahead 2 balls, no strikes.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Strike one.
3 balls, 1 strike.
Strike two.
3-2. Just out of the fielder's reach. He's on with a single.
Little back.
Jackson taking, and it's inside. That will fall in for a base hit. And that base hit is his 4th of the game.
The key to that play was the runner moving in scoring position.
Ramirez steps into the box.
Strike one.
Hit to the right side. He fouled it off to the right. The delivery, a 3-pitch strikeout.
Hey, the pitcher wins the battle. Sweet pitch to get the K.
Up next, David Ortiz. This guy has some success against right-handed pitchers.
They've set that defense at double play depth. If he can get a ground ball right here, they might get 2.
He takes the pitch to left. He makes the catch. Stepping in, Johnny Damon. First and second with 2 down. This past season, he hit .256 with 5 long balls and 44 runs batted in.
Strike two.
They asked the third base umpire if he swung. Swing and a miss, struck him out. With 1 inning left to play, the score is 9-5.
one. Strike two.
0-2. Inside. On the ground, he'll pick it up on a roll. And he's out. The next batter is John Casey. Base is empty with one out. So far today, this guy is hitting everything in sight. Slider up in the zone, catches the outside corner.
Great pitch on the black. Would have been a called strike even if the batter didn't swing through it.
And on 3 pitches, he's gone.
Ooh, this guy's had a rough day, man. That strikeout just gave him the hat trick.
Two outs and nobody on. On the ground, gathers it in with his glove. They make the play. After 8.5, the Orioles lead by a margin of 4. Up next with one single already, Mike Lowe. Misses up high with the hanging split finger. Taken for a ball.
Look like the pitcher and catcher have a strategy in mind. So far, the batters are taking these pitches.
Ball outside. He missed with the changeup.
Sometimes you try to make the hitter chase your pitch. That's exactly what you saw right there.
Strike one.
Hitters count 3-1.
Strike two.
The count runs full. Walk number 3 given up in the ball game. There's some activity in the bullpen. Here comes the manager for a mound visit. Next up, Miguel Cabrera.
The pitcher really needs to slow down and refocus. Seems like that trip to the mound came just at the right time.
Man on first with no outs.
Strike one. Strike two.
0-2 the count. Yanked to the left side. It looks like he may have been injured on the play. Let's hope it's not too serious. The Orioles have a left-hander and a right-hander getting loose in the bullpen. The Orioles go to the bullpen. Here's the new pitcher, Jorge Julio. You can tell by looking at his swing that he looks way more comfortable batting left-handed.
Strike one.
Pitch taken for a ball.
Strike two.
Foul back behind the catcher. No swing. He's down on strikes.
Hey, Kai, if he was able to get ahead in the count, the batter never caught up. Good strikeout.
Slider is low for a ball.
Strike two.
1-2 count.
Kai, what a great way to end the game if you're on the pitcher's team.
Otska is the winner. Dempster is the loser. The final score, the Baltimore Orioles 9, the Red Sox 5.
Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 20 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to roll into year 1978, the year 1978 of Mark Martin's career. But before we do that, again, race fans, make sure to hit Mark Martin POD, markmartinpod.com on the internet. Get all the old episodes, downloads, links, and make sure to subscribe on all of the different players. Give us that 5-star rating. Mark Martin Pod, markmartinpod.com. Also, make sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Mark Martin Pod. But Mark, we're going to roll into a big year, and I know you're excited about this one, 1978 of your racing career.
Yeah, so we'll follow up on 1977, where we got our first initiation on pavement racing, asphalt racing. Wound up dipping our toe a little bit into ASA and winning the ASA Rookie of the Year and going from zero to recognized hot shoe in 1 year. So as the season winds down, as I said before, Ed Howe had offered a new chassis, free new chassis to us. So we had a new car out on the horizon that we were going to put together over the winter. We had plans on running the full ASA circuit to try to win the championship because, you know, that would get us some really good experience and recognition. I had New Smyrna Speed Week set in my sights. After our first season down there, I wanted to go down there and race for the championship, and needed to build a new hauler. And I don't know why in the world that I thought that a Ford Cube van would be the right hauler to pull this new trailer that my dad designed or